recording. Then I'm going to share my screen. Let's offer some prayers to Srila Prabhupada before we begin. Nama Om Vishnu Pathaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavhadi Pashtatara Satadine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, I think if we just, I was thinking I could just read the verse again to have a recap on the verse, and then someone can pick up from reading the purple. And you see on my screen, I just highlight where we are reading from here. Yeah, you can see that. Yeah. So let me just read the verse. It's a wonderful verse, as we mentioned yesterday. Okay, chapter 6, text 20 to 23. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the, excuse me, just checking I got my camera on. Yes. To see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth. And upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So really beautiful verse. And so someone like to pick up the purple in the system, in the yoga system. And
shall I read Hare Krishna, Prabhu?
Yes,
Shall I
go
read?
ahead, Robert. Yes, you can.
In the yoga system, as described in this chapter, there are two kinds of samadhi called samprajata samadhi and asprajanata samadhi. When one becomes situated in the transcendental position by various philosophical researches, he is said to have achieved samprajanata samadhi.
Yes.
In the asamara, how do you say that, Prabhu? I can't.
I'm not sure.
Just in the Asam Prajanata Samadhi, there's no longer any connection with mundane pleasure, but one is then transcendental to all sorts of happiness derived from the senses. When the yogi is once situated in the transcendental position, he is never shaken from it. Unless the yogi is able to reach this position, he is unsuccessful. Today's so-called yoga practice, which involves various sense pleasures, is contradictory. A yogi indulging in sex and intoxication is a mockery. Even those yogis who are attracted by the siddhis, perfections, in the process of yoga are not perfectly situated. If yogis are attracted by the byproduct of yoga, then they cannot attain the stage of perfection, as is stated in this verse. Persons, therefore, indulging in the show practice of gymnastic feats or siddhis should know that the aim of yoga is lost in that way.
Speaking just for this purple, because it's quite long, we can just pause at each paragraph. And
okay.
See if there's any comments or questions here. And I guess I can begin by just mentioning what I mentioned a few times in this particular chapter. So excuse me if you've heard it before. But here, this is specifically speaking about the classic practice of yoga. This is called Dhyana Yoga, also known as Ashtanga Yoga. So generally it's practiced by stark renunciates, those who do not live in the village, those who meditate, say, in the Himalayas and as I mentioned yesterday, and I think in the next paragraph, Prabhupada's going to give the Krishna conscious the practical application. So first of all, in this paragraph, Prabhupada is beginning to explaining the mockery which we see today in the name of so-called yoga practice. There's so many, could say, bogus yoga practitioners, which is not aimed at reaching Krishna. Anyway, so I'm skipping around here on the pages. So any questions or comments here? We understand what sampragnata samadhi is and asampragnata. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I can't identify the exact difference between the two. It's quite subtle. When one becomes situated in a transcendental position by various philosophical researchers. So you could say that's what type of yogi is that? Someone who's engaged in philosophical research?
Jnani?
Jnani, yeah. So Jnani. So by mental discipline, yeah, one achieves a level of detachment. Yeah, and then in asampragnata, there is no longer any connection with mundane pleasure, for one is then transcendental to all sorts of happiness derived from the senses. So that means, as the verse explains, they get their happiness from within. And yeah, there's quite a long commentary on this by our acharyas, so it's quite long, so I won't go into it. But anyway, any comments or questions anyone would like to make here? If not, we can read on. Yeah, probably making a make-show practice of gymnastic feats or siddhis. One should know that the real aim is lost. Okay, so now Prabhupada's going to give us the practical application of this in regards to Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So I guess you can continue reading, Mother.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The best practice of yoga in this age is Krishna consciousness, which is not baffling. A Krishna conscious person is so happy in his occupation that he does not aspire after any other happiness. There are many impediments, especially in this age of hypocrisy, to practicing Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, but there's no such problem in executing Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga.
Any quick questions on this? I guess it's quite a short paragraph there.
I think it's quite clear, this one is.
Quite clear, yeah.
Yep.
Hatha Yoga, we all know what Hatha Yoga is. Dhyana Yoga is meditation, and Jnana Yoga, philosophical speculation. What's Prabhupada mean by here, Karma Yoga? He says there's no...
I was just going to ask you that because, okay, Bhakti Yoga you can understand, but Prabhupada's just telling about Karma Yoga.
Yeah, why has he put that into the category of being no problem?
Bhakti Yoga. Because I was thinking of that because it's meant for all different kind of people who, by doing Karma Yoga, will then come up to Bhakti Yoga. Because you know that chapter Karma Yoga, at the end, everything Prabhupada is saying in the purpose that Bhakti Yoga is the best, you know?
Yeah. Anybody else on this? Yeah, because we've read that the last chapter was Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So whatever your karma is, your specific your specific conditioning, your specific nature, whatever that is, then you yoga, and which could yoga, then you link it to Krishna. So it is Krishna consciousness. Yeah, it's a level of Krishna consciousness where you offer what you have, your skills and your inclinations, and you offer that to Krishna. And you will become purified of material attachment by offering what you have or what you can do to Krishna. So that is much more. Remember, we read the chapters where it describes that there's verses in the Gita that describes that a person who does that is better than the person who's so-called practicing dhyana but meditating on the objects of the senses. Yeah, if someone's practicing just yoga, but they're still attached to the world and they're meditating upon the senses of the objects still, then they're considered to be, what's the word? A cheater. So better you be an honest sweeper in the street. Yeah. So whatever is your collective karma in your particular body, then offer that to Krishna. So that's, Prabhupada says, no such problem in doing that, because it's basically, that is Krishna consciousness. So karma yoga stroke bhakti yoga. Yeah.
Is it in
Sorry? Go ahead.
Go for it.
So you could be doing, so you could be practicing bhakti yoga, but not doing karma yoga. I mean, some people practice bhakti yoga, they may not understand, or they may not be even on the level of offering all their activities to Krishna. They may just be chanting or following, you know. It's possible to be doing bhakti yoga, and I mean, karma yoga is included in bhakti yoga, but you may not necessarily be actually doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good, what you're explaining there. Actually, karma yoga should be included in bhakti. It should be that one is dedicating oneself to the activities of bhakti, and one is dovetailing somehow or another one's activities in bhakti. If one's working, one maybe, for instance, one is working, then one, with the money one earns, one buys bhoga and offers that to Krishna. So one is linking. So someone may be coming to bhakti, and the first thing they're going to be told or learn is to chant Hare Krishna. But like as they develop, then they will learn how to dovetail all of their worldly activities in Krishna consciousness. So that will probably come later on. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking in chapter 12, doesn't Krishna say, do this, but if you can't do this, do this. If you can't do this, do this. He's giving quite a bit of options.
Yeah, that's a slightly different context. Because there he gives the options of which are not connected directly to Krishna consciousness. Like you just become charitable. You just give charity to someone. Yeah, so that's a different context.
But can that be like karma yoga, and then slowly he's bringing that person up to bhakti yoga?
It can be. So for those in chapter 12, the first thing Krishna says there is practice sadhana. If you can't practice sadhana, then just try to work for me. Yeah. If you can't work for me, then just try to give in charity to maintain the activities of bhakti. If you can't do that, engage in meditation. I think if you can't do that, then give in charity.
So is that person doing, like I'm thinking, is that person then doing karma yoga, and slowly Krishna is bringing him up to bhakti yoga?
Yeah, that will be the longer path.
Right.
After many births, one may come to bhakti, and unless they meet a devotee. But Mavalawanga, did that answer your question, or did it?
Yeah. I was just confused about how the two relate to each other, because they seem to be like not very separate, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they're not. So I think
like karma yoga.
Yeah. I think what Prabhupada is doing here, he is giving two descriptions of bhakti. He says karma yoga or bhakti yoga. Right? It's a different
Yeah.
level of practice. Like there's one level, like the level of karma yoga is where you offer what you're inclined to do. But the higher level is bhakti, is that you do what
Krishna wants you
yeah,
to do.
whatever
Okay.
Krishna or the Guru wants you to do, regardless of your particular psychophysical nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That makes it clear. Thank you.
All right. All right. Let's read any. Let's read another paragraph. Yes.
As long,
Yeah.
okay. As long as the material body exists, one has to meet the demands of the body, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. But a person who is in pure bhakti yoga or in Krishna consciousness does not arouse the senses while meeting the demands of the body. Rather, he accepts the bare necessities of life, making the best use of a bad bargain, and enjoys transcendental happiness in Krishna consciousness. He is callous towards incidental occurrences, such as accidents, disease, scarcity, and even the death of a most dear relative. But he is always alert to execute his duties in Krishna consciousness or bhakti yoga. Accidents never deviate him from his duty. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 2.14, he endures all such incidental occurrences because he knows that they come and go and do not affect his duties. In this way, he achieves the highest perfection in yoga practice.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the same level of absorption that's achieved by a successful, say, practitioner of meditation. I mean, I keep giving an example of in the Himalayas, someone who's practicing intense meditation, and the level of absorption that they achieve is achieved by a devotee. But this is how it manifests. Devotee may be living in the world where he sees where there are accidents, there are diseases, scarcity, etc. But interesting, the word Prabhupada used the word callous. Anyway, any questions here about this? Let's look
Yeah, I mean, people who want to say, like devotees don't really care for their family if they're not Krishna conscious.
Yeah.
Like here it says like callous to the passing away, death of a dear relative. I mean, they may even be a devotee, but it seems like it's you could find fault with it if you wanted to. You might say, well, that's not very nice.
Yeah.
So how does that how do you resolve that?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I particularly asked if there's any questions, because I read this before we opened up today, and I also thought the same thing. And I looked up the word callous. Let's see if I can find it here. It's going to come up. Yeah, here, can you see this? Does a dictionary come up on your screen?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay,
Yes.
so is callous, showing or having an insensitive and cruel disregard for others. And the thesaurus describes heartless, unfeeling, uncaring, cold-hearted, as hard as nails, hard-hearted, etc. So Prabhupada saying a devotee is callous.
But even disease, like we're supposed to, like this, you hear this phrase like self-care now, where you're supposed to care for yourself because you can't care for other people until you care for yourself. And then, but this is like, oh right, even if you're diseased, you should just like be callous towards it. I mean,
Yeah, so
I don't know how.
understands the question. Now we're having not perhaps a doubt, but we're questioning Prabhupada's use of the word callous. Is this how devotees should be?
No,
That was the question.
no,
So
Prabhu.
if someone asks you this, well, Swami Srila Prabhupada, he says we shouldn't care if our husband dies or a wife dies or a child dies. We should be callous. So
And I think
say,
Prabhupada is relating it to Krishna conscious. You know, we should be not attached. You can't look, you could go like funerals or whatever. If somebody's ill, you go pay your respects and everything. But within, you should be detached with all these things.
okay, so that's it.
Not too affected.
Yeah, not too affected with things.
So not too.
Yeah, I think it's a level. This attitude is just like a level that's close to Krishna consciousness, but I think you should be callous to some extent, but also engage in empathy with your people who are like mourning the passing of another soul, or
Yeah.
care for people who have a disease. Like you might do that. Oh, maybe you should be callous about your own diseases, but when another person is diseased, I mean, you can't be callous about that. You really should care for them. But I think this callousness is basically on a
Philosophical basis.
more on an internal level.
Yeah, because also we see as examples, for instance, in my Bhagavad, in our morning class in the temple here in London, we're just reading about Maharaj Yudhisthira, how he was overcome with dread at the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra, because millions and millions and millions of men, boys had been killed. And there was millions and millions of widows and daughters without husbands, etc. And he was very much affected. Also, we see when Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu, was killed, he was grief-stricken, and Krishna pacified him. And the way Krishna pacified him was not to say, Dehinosmin yata dehe. Krishna wasn't callous towards Arjuna. He embraced Arjuna and began to praise Abhimanyu. So I think from what you've said, I think we can understand Prabhupada's use of this word is not as the dictionary. It's not as the dictionary explains it, at least in the Oxford Dictionary. Callous, I think, more as a philosophical understanding. So one is able, for instance, at the passing of a loved one, someone who's dear, one is able to, One is able to digest that at some point. Yeah, and understand, as we know, that the soul is eternal. Does that make sense? Did that help in understanding this? So I'm saying it's like a philosophical understanding that in this world, we're going to face accidents. We're going to face disease, and we're going to face the death of those who are dear to us. But I think it's confirmed later, Prabhupada's mood in using this word is confirmed here, because he then quotes 2:14. Anyone knows what the basic translation to this verse is?
Titikshwa means to titikshwa is to put up with it, or there's a special word.
Yeah, happiness and distress comes like winter and summer.
Yes.
So one should learn to tolerate them without being
tolerate. That's the word. Titiksha is tolerate.
So anyway, we're getting really into trying to work out how Prabhupada used this word, but I think he's using it in this context. A devotee tolerates, and he continues, and he or she continues. For instance, when someone very dear to someone dies, then the next day, it's not the devotee continues chanting Hare Krishna. Yeah, they pick up their beads, Hare Krishna goes on, They do some reading. One's duties in Krishna consciousness remains. Remember when my father died? Of course, it's a bit of it's quite different, it's bit of an emotional pulling, but we just continue. We continue doing our activities in bhakti towards Krishna. So I think this is what Prabhupada means by callous, that a devotee continues executing bhakti. He says accidents never deviate him from his duty. So we have our specific duties, our specific services. The common one we all have is chanting the holy name. Yeah, all right. I think we've kind of...
I was trying to ask you, see if we can understand. Rishikesh, like, how ill he was. So when he left his body, and would we, like, in a way, it was like we were okay. We were like, in a way, happy in a way.
Happy for him.
And, yeah, happy for him, really, like that. So can you call that being callous? Because that he got out of that body, horrible body and things like that.
Yeah.
So
I think you can call it here that devotees are knowledgeable and they know about the world, and they know about the soul, and they know about material nature, and they know no one's going to live forever, and they know people die, even loved ones, and they know everything is in Krishna's control. So that gives a certain level of detachment. And if you want, you could call it callous, but I don't think it's callous in the dictionary definition.
Yeah. But
as we just read, it means that one continues with one's duties in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. All right. Anything else we can fathom from this? Otherwise, we go to the next verse, 624. Yeah, anyway, you accept the bare necessities of life. There's a film, The Bare Necessities of Life. Yeah, accept the bare necessities. So are we living with the bare necessities? Some of us, our necessities are more than others, it may be. Yeah. But we don't follow the path of the materialist. Yeah. For instance, it's not as if hopefully all devotees here have less than 10 pairs of shoes.
Less than 5, less than 3.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before, I saw this thing where one queen in Nepal, she had like 2,000 pairs of shoes. It's like, yeah, we are not materialists. We live in this world, but we live simply. Yeah, we just have what we need because we're happy within, because we're happy with Krishna. Therefore, we are not like the gross materialist, yeah, who is not happy within. So they try to be artificially happy by collecting things and more than what they need, becoming entangled, So, Hare Krishna. All right, let's have a look at 624. Okay, someone like to read this one? It's a relatively longish purple. I took lots of notes on these pages 20 to 20, verse 20 to 23, but I'm not going to read through them. It would take too long. Let's just go on to text 24. Someone like to read? Anyone? Someone?
Yeah, I will read.
Go ahead.
Yeah. 624. Nanisjayanta yoktavyo yogo nirvina cetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamans tyaktva sarvan sesata. Is this the translation here? One should engage oneself?
Yes.
But there's 2 more lines, Labanga.
There's 2 more lines to read.
Let's say
Oh, sorry. I was wondering where they came from. Sorry. I'm doing it on the computer this screen, so I don't know. Manasevendriya gramam vinayamya samantata. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Purport, Srila Prabhupada. The yoga practitioner should be determined and should be patiently prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure of success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there is any delay in the attainment of success. Success is sure for the right practitioner. Regarding Bhakti Yoga, Rupa Goswami says, Utsahan nischaya darya tad karma pravartanat sangat jagat sato vrite sadbir bhakti prasidyati. One can execute the process of bhakti yoga successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance, and determination by following the prescribed duties in association of devotees and by engaging completely in activities of goodness. Upadeshamita 3. As for determination, one should follow the example of how the sparrow had lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did, next page, did not even consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate toward his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially Bhakti Yoga in Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job, but if one follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves.
Yes, very nice. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask a question here, a different type of question. So, what's going on in this purple? What is going? Just try and give a little. What is the purple directing us to see or understand?
It's I think it's helping us to see that we need determination, that like it may seem like an impossible hill to climb to get out of this material world, to connect with Krishna or to have love for Krishna, or but if we act like the sparrow, then Krishna will help us.
Yeah, more or less. This is quite self-evident here. Yeah. And anybody else? I guess Mother Lavanga summarized it quite well.
Yeah, by the sparrow's example.
Yeah.
Determination. Even if you think like the sparrow doesn't understand how big the ocean is, but determination. So we don't understand Krishna and his everything, connecting to him. But if we trust the Shastras, trust our gurus, we follow the process, I think we should make it.
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking as we were reading it that this part where he says we should be sure of success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance. I was thinking of Prabhupada himself, the order of his spiritual master. It didn't happen very quickly. He was doing this very thing. He was making little steps and trying to do it, but it wasn't easy. But he persevered.
Yeah. Very good example. Yeah. And also, if you think of the example itself, what hope has that sparrow got of emptying the ocean? It's almost laughable, isn't it? What hope does that sparrow have? Yet, despite the impossibility of his task, he is trying. He is sincerely trying. So, do you know, we're reading, for instance, in one of our group readings, we're reading Sankalpa Kumudi, and we read other books which delineates the different levels of attainment in Nam Bhajan, where Krishna reveals his name, form, qualities and pastimes, and we're reading about Samadhi, and you read about the attainment of Sarup, and taking the shelter of one of the Lord's servants within attaining Bhava, isn't it? When we read all these subjects of attaining Bhava, a Shakti, then sometimes when we're reading these topics, we might feel a little bit disheartened. What hope do I have? But here is explaining that we should have all hope. Yeah?
That's exactly what I was thinking, what you're saying. I was thinking when we're reading, how we get, to get to prema stage. Well, not even to prema, even bhav, and how much one.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep interrupting. Carry on.
No, I was thinking how much envy, jealousy, all that we've got, and you think, well, when are we going to get rid of all these? It's like never ending.
Yeah.
But like the sparrow, we have to keep chanting and doing our sadhana, and we will get there.
So the sparrow was just doing according to his capacity. He wasn't able to do more. So that's what we have to do. Just continue bhakti according to our capacity. It's just like, is everyone ever, when we're discussing these subjects of the attainment of bhakti, sometimes it's like hearing about, you're reading about, say, someone who's accomplished something fantastic, like someone who lands on the moon, or someone who's a multi-billionaire. Okay, that's all material. We're not interested in it. We're not interested. But when you hear about persons who attain things which will be never, let's say on a material platform, that you know will never be attainable to you. When we hear about Prahlad Maharaj, when we hear about these great devotees in Srimad Bhagavatam, there may be an underlying doubt that we can attain that perfection. Anyone have that experience? I do. But here we're being reassured. Yeah, we are not, for instance, for a materialist, for like, say, an ordinary person who has ordinary karma, yeah, and they're desiring to be the president of the United States of America. They may be, yeah, but they've got, they've got no hope. Well, we never know today. Anyway, but why do I give that example? So but it's different through bhakti. It doesn't matter on your material situation. It doesn't matter here. We can go back to Godhead, and we can obtain love for Krishna. We just have to be like the sparrow. It is open to everyone. Yeah. Do you follow? Yeah. So yes.
One thing I realized from this was, how Garuda comes to help the sister bird because her endeavor. So Garuda comes. So in the same way, if we endeavor with determination, Krishna will send us someone or the other to help us.
Yeah.
Either gurus, devotees, mentors, anybody. Krishna will send us.
Yeah, and where was it? It said, at the end here, for God helps those who help themselves. Yeah. So this purport is encouraging us to, what could we say? It's encouraging us to have faith in the process, faith in ourselves, in achieving the goal. Yeah. Just have a quick look here on some commentaries from Acharya Sampradayas. They're mainly commenting in regards to the nature of dhyana and meditation. I'll just give a few highlights. Having renounced all desires which arise due to infatuation of the mind and sense objects, as well as renouncing the impressions from past sense experiences. These can be obstacles to achieving yoga, or the science of the individual consciousness attaining communion with the ultimate consciousness, which Prabhupada simply calls Krishna consciousness. Yeah. And he says here, controlling the senses from meandering in all directions by the strength of the purified mind, which views sense gratification as a detrimental activity for spiritual development. You follow? I thought that was quite good. Yeah. So that's why we have to be doing sanghas like this, you know, so we can strengthen our mind, we can purify our mind and direct, and view sense gratification as detrimental to my spiritual development. Yeah. Because before coming to Krishna consciousness, we view sense gratification as, wow, fantastic, great, go for it. But now we're practicing bhakti, so those impressions which may still be there, we need spiritual intelligence to understand that these things are not going to be successful for my spiritual development. So therefore, we have strength in order to turn away from them. You follow? And there's more here, but it's a bit, let's see, it's more or less a similar vein. Yeah, okay. Anything else you'd like to bring out here? So this is an encouraging verse. This is an encouraging purport. Yeah. We should see ourselves like that little bird. Yeah. But we do have to do some work, which is described here. This is down to us. We have to choose to abandon, without exception, all material desires. Yeah. But that we can do with purified intelligence, by reading Bhagavad Gita. All right. Should we read another verse? Yes.
Okay, I have a question.
Please, yeah.
Okay, if one, after reading this purport and realizing that we must endeavor, we must do as much as, so you determine you want to do a lot, but like, so you started day and your runs are done, this, that, you want to do a lot more, but the whole day goes and you realize you haven't done what you would really like to do. So the determination is there, but for some reason you haven't met your goals. So what happens? What do you do? How do you change situation?
Well, I've got there's something that comes to mind upon that, but perhaps I'll offer that question out to others here. So you're speaking, so you want to do this and you want to do that and you want to do this and you want to do that, but you just don't come up to the mark.
That you want to do, yes.
You don't. So,
yes. I would like to know the answer to that one also, because that happens to me nearly every day.
Yes.
I'm going to read this and I'm going to chant this.
Exactly.
At the end of the evening, I think, what happened? I thought I was determined, but I don't know. I don't know what happens. Look, I put it down to Krishna interfering and not letting me do it. Which is probably not the case at all, but I think, like, I don't know what it is. I think it's discipline. Maybe discipline is lacking, somewhere, and the time just drifts off.
Other devotees experience this as well? It's like water running through your palm.
Yes, Prabhu, me too. Yes, all the time.
Raise his hand. Yeah.
Yes.
Actually,
yes.
I listened to a class, your Guru Maharaj's class today, and he did say that those who think they're satisfied in whatever they're doing, they're not really kind of making progress. But those who are really like greedy, want to achieve more, want to do more, are determined in a way.
Determined, but the body will not cooperate with whatever we want to do. We really want to do it, but body says, no, I'm tired, or the circumstance. For younger persons, it's the circumstances, the children or husband, they can't do it.
So
With
I
all
think
determination.
I think we all experience the same thing to like one degree or another. So the causes might be various. I know one devotee, I mean, I'm not into astrology so much, but one devotee explained to me that his astrology said it's just your karma that you're never going to get things together materially between this period. So it may be our karma, maybe
The astrology doesn't hit the spiritual life. It's
no,
for spiritual.
it doesn't. But the activities of, say, so we're speaking about the activities, the gross activities, gross in one sense, the activities of doing specific services for Krishna. Is that what we're speaking of? Reading, doing.
Yes.
Anyway, that's one way to look at it. It may be just your karma is such that you are a unorganized person. You find it difficult to organize yourself. You find it difficult to be regulated. That it may well just be your karma. It doesn't mean we don't try to be regulated, but that may be one reason. Another reason might be the free modes of material nature. Yeah. And another good reason as well is that what we're trying to do, we're trying to do it in a material world. So that might present some problems as well. But we can try. It's good to try and be organized and try and be and have a sankalpa and like have a specific determination. But yeah. So now we're looking at the problems. We have just highlighted a few causes. Anyone could bring up a few more causes.
Like I give you a day today. There was noon program today, and normally I go and do it on a Wednesday. I'll just say that I will do it. And today I was like tired. No, I need to relax. I need to do this. I need to do that. But at the end, did I do? I mean, I know the day went good, but still that feeling that I could have done more is there.
Yeah, I like to bring this out more. Any comments on that? Is what Chandravali's saying? Is this a good feeling to have that I wish I could do more? Is it a natural feeling for a devotee?
And sometimes I feel that I want to do it, but we have to satisfy myself with doing less and then feel, oh, I wish I could.
Yeah.
And so maybe our desires, like Krishna, is not fulfilling them because he sees a bigger picture, and like if we want to do these things, but maybe Krishna is thinking, well, if I let her do that, she will, get into trouble here or there, whatever, and he may be like helping us by blocking some things that we can't do.
Yeah, that's a good. There may be a picture that we are not seeing. For example, Prabhupada, before he came to the West, he had various preaching adventures which failed utterly. Yeah, for instance, that chapter preaching in Jhansi. It seemed so
Mm.
promising, but then it all fell through. The whole thing collapsed. And Prabhupada's business, for example. So yeah, so that's another. There might be a bigger picture. Might be a bigger picture. Yeah. But I'm just bringing out the point that the fact that we feel we would like to have done more, we should just get used to that, because that's going to be there forever. Because that's the feeling of a devotee. The service to Krishna is unlimited, and we want to do so much for Krishna, but we're restricted due to the body, due to various factors that we have just brought up. So it's a good feeling to feel that you could have done more, and it's a natural feeling for a devotee. There's always room for improvement. What's Vaisheshika says this was it ABS? You know what that means? ABS, always better service. So for instance, after marathon, like they have a meeting and they brainstorm, okay, it was a great marathon, but what could have we done better? So that's another way of looking at it. You know, that will be there. We devotee always wants to do more, you know. But another way to like you're speaking of doing things, achieving certain things, reading an hour, chanting 32 rounds, or you know, different vows and different determinations you may take. But perhaps one of the most important things that we can try and improve, which is always obtainable to us to one degree or another, and that's to put in devotion, to chant Krishna's holy name with attention and with devotion. How can we increase in our internal, you could say, our internal devotion in doing our activities? You know, it's something to think about. That is an unlimited ocean of room for improvement. How devotionally can I chant Hare Krishna? Yeah. Am I chanting Hare Krishna like a like a shotgun with not much thoughts and feelings? Let me invest some devotion into this chanting. Yeah. But that's I'm going internal there. We've got the external things we want to do, but then there's the internal. How can I do this and be conscious of Krishna? You know, that's another way to look at that question which Chandravali brought out. You know, anything on that? Always. All right. Let's have a little peek at the next verse. Time just slipped away again. I think went on a bit, but 625. It's a small purple. Let's go for 625. Someone like to read this one? So let's have this as a take home for today's reading. This example of the small bird and Garuda. Yeah, you should think of ourselves like that small bird, and the Lord is like Garuda. So it seems impossible, but let's be encouraged. Yes. So someone like to read this one? 25.
I can read.
Go ahead, other guy. Thank you.
Shanai Shanair Uparamed Vidyadriti Grihitaya Atma Samstam Mana Kritva Nakinchit Apichintayet. Translation. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction. And the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Purport. By proper by proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara. The mind, being controlled by conviction, meditation, and cessation from the senses, should be situated in trance or samadhi. At that time, there is no longer any danger of becoming engaged in the material conception of life. In other words, although one is involved with matter, as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So again, Prabhupada gives the Krishna conscious purport in the last sentence. It's automatically obtained by practicing Krishna consciousness. So the purport is about the practice of meditation, but also we're reading in Sankalpa Kumudi about Nam Bhajan, and includes these different attainments while chanting the holy name, isn't it? Remember that discussion? Pratyahara and the samadhi of a devotee. Any questions or comments here? A couple of minutes left. I just read something here. I thought it's interesting. This is from Shuta Swami. It says, if the mind should become unfocused due to the influence of latent impressions in the mind from past activities, then one unperturbed, so we're being instructed now, one should firmly bring the mind back by concentration and refocusing, meditating on, he mentions the Atma or the soul, yeah, while withdrawing the mind away from the external impressions of the subtle body. So practically speaking, sometimes we become distracted by the material world, isn't it? We become distracted by issues in the world. We become distracted by disagreements with people or family members. Yeah. So we may become unfocused. Yeah. So we should recognize that and try and try and bring things back to focus. You know, that's why we should have a strong sadhana each day where we can refocus. Yeah. And he mentions disability. This will manifest gradually by degrees and should not be expected to happen immediately. Yeah. So as we go on in Krishna consciousness, we should have the ability to withdraw ourselves from the unnecessary nagging of the mind. The mind just goes on and on and on and on and on. Yeah, isn't it? Anyone experienced that? So we have to, you know, it says here, step by step. So this is, yeah, step by step. Sankalpa, yeah. One should be situated in Krishna consciousness by means of studying Bhagavad Gita, be fully convinced, yeah, and be fixed on our goal of Krishna. And think of, that's our goal. Think of nothing else. Yeah. All right. Is that okay for today?
Yes, thank you.
Nice to have a little dip in the Bhagavad Gita, you know, 1 hour congregational reading. It's always so wonderful. All right. So next week we can continue. It's going to speak about the mind, you know, here, making the mind one's friend, etc. Self-controlled yoga, just similar subject. So we'll look at that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this reading.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. We'll stop.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, so much.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Ram, Ram, Ram, Ram, Hare Hare.